Ko Hera Edwards taku ingoa, I whakapapa to Pirinoa in the Wairarapa and also Rāpaki Ngāi Tahu. So does that mean I get to go on the TT Islands too? Yeah, I don't really like mutton beds, so don't tell my dad that. So I'm actually really privileged to be standing in front of you today and actually quite honoured that Kataraina asked me to come and talk to you about an assessment tool that we developed over at Whaiora in the Wairarapa. So some of the stuff that I'll be covering really quickly, because I know that we're on time and I don't want to go over, is basically the who, the what, the who, the why, what, who, how, when of how we develop this. An overview of KDT Kyodo, which is a program that we developed using this assessment tool, which was our Whaiora's answer to addressing the cardiovascular and diabetes epidemic for our people. And also I've got a Whānau success story who've been through this process and have had some really good outcomes from it, and obviously some learnings that we got from working with our whānau. And a lot of this really has been said over the whole course of the day, so I apologise because I'm just going to be repeating it again. So right back in the start, here we start with the research thing. I've got to say too also that I'm a registered nurse by trade, so I thought I had no idea about research until Kataraina came into my life and just started asking questions. And when I was answering them, oh, well, we looked at this. She said, well, that's research. So when I talk about processes, hopefully you researchers out there will understand methods. So right back in 2008, our DHB put out a needs assessment, and from that came out some really disturbing figures that 65% of all Māori deaths that were reported between the times of 1997 and 2007 were actually considered preventable. So taking that on board, in 2009, the Ministry of Health, thank you Deborah, put out Te Ao Ahuatanga Hauora, which was a Māori Innovation Fund. Whaiora put in a proposal for that, and we decided that we wanted to focus on diabetes and cardiovascular disease for our people in the Wairarapa. Part of our proposal that was put into that, they looked at, here's some research, Bodenheimer, which was a teamlet model that talked about transforming traditional 15-minute appointment doctor's appointments. So this is really clinically health focused, but we'll go on to that. So, excuse me, I've got heaps of notes here that I probably won't even use. So, sort of the how. Well, we were lucky enough to put the proposal in, and we were granted that fund, which is funded to June 2013 next year. So one of the big parts of that is that we needed some really top-notch evaluators. So this is when Kataraina came into our lives. So what KDT Kyodo really was it's a 12-month program that aims to realise Whānau Ora by applying limited resources to maximise the wellness outcomes of a managed group of people, our whānau, to help improve preventative processes and assist to increase curative interventions. That's a mouthful. Try and say that real fast. So what we did is Kataraina came, and with Whaiora we developed a logic model. So we had a hui in 2010 and started discussing ways that we might be able to deliver something for our people. Following that, a small team was organised that later became the KDT Kyodo team. So we identified some key people from that hui in 2010. And then we started developing some key questions. Well, yeah, we want to combat diabetes and cardiovascular disease. How are we going to do that? Actually, really, what do we want to know? And when we find out that sort of stuff, what are we going to do with it? How will we know, again, what success looks like for our whānau? So we decided to pull in some whānau and ask them. So before we did that, we thought that we would also develop a model of care. Again, like the previous presenters, it was really, really important that our whānau stayed in the centre of it, because it's definitely not about us. It is about our whānau. We also knew that it was really important to have our organisational values underpinned by that, so which is where we get manaakitanga, wairua, te reo me o na tikanga, aroha, whakapapa, kawa whakaruru hau, but keeping the whānau in the middle. So this is the model that we developed, and within that we have the Kahui Whaiora, so that's the team that we're working with the whānau. We because we're clinically based, we needed to make sure that their wellness was looked at, and with all those other things, you just can't look at the health as not one specific thing. So obviously we looked at their environment. So we're not just talking about the land that they're sitting on, it's about what's happening around them. With that, education was a huge part of that. Health literacy is a huge thing for our people. So we knew we needed to, and knowledge is power as well. So if we could actually give our whānau some skills, some tools and some knowledge, that would actually help them realise their own potentials. It's all about the whānau, and obviously surrounding that some other values that we thought were also important. So following on to that, we decided that we needed to develop a framework. So as you see right at the top, we've got, these are not in any particular order, but from the model, if we go back, kahui Whaiora, which is in that blue little circle there. So we put that at the top, and we needed to ask ourselves some questions, just like our previous presenters. How well do we actually understand the needs and the wants of our whānau? Working with whānau, you know, you can sometimes get, what's the word for it? Yeah, a bit like that. Or we tend to think that we know it all. So, you know, we get a referral in and we start painting pictures already of our whānau. So in the organisation that I work with, we might get a referral in from somewhere that says, look, this lady is overweight, she's a smoker, her diabetes is out of control. So straight away we paint this picture, you know, of what they might look like. That's not necessarily their own reality. How clear and compassionate is our communication with tangata whaiora? So, you know, actually, what are the words that are coming out of our mouths? Are they actually understandable? What type of language are we using? Is it appropriate for the whānau? Or because language that we use with our kaumātua is very different than what we should be using with our rangatahi sometimes. Again, when we look at this other circle, so I just go back and forth, in the green circle, wellness. So we're looking at the total wellness, how physically well are our whānau, how confident are whānau to make decisions about their wellness, because sometimes they're not, you know, because they've always been dictated to. And here's a piece of paper and off you go and do stuff. Again, education was a huge thing that we needed to address, and looking at what are the assets of our whaiora, of our whānau, what do they already have? What do they already know? Because we, again, they're assuming stuff. We think that they either know everything, so we don't tell them stuff, or we think that they don't know anything, and we sit there and start telling them things that they already know. And again, also environment was also important. Now, this is just a really shortened version of, I couldn't fit it all on one slide. So after the assessment tool. So as I said, sometimes we think that we already have an advantage of already working with our whānau, so we know things, we know exactly what that whānau's up to and what will happen to them, and if we introduce this is what they'll do. So we sat down within our little team, and we had a really intense couple of hui about what we were already doing with our whānau and what were our whānau actually telling us. So we were really brutal and honest with ourselves, and our top 10 that we came up was obviously our whānau wanting to know about their conditions, because they keep representing, or they're not understanding stuff, so they just don't take their medication, or they don't like that lady and what she said to me last time, so I'm not going to go back to her. So we came up with these. Some of this is what we know that our whānau wanted, and some of the stuff that we were already doing with our whānau. Now, I think I've mixed these slides up, but I'll keep going anyway. So what we decided to do was, we came up with our top 10, was actually to talk to our whānau. So we had a whānau focus group. We asked them some key questions, like magic wand stuff. If we had a magic wand, what do you want? What are we as an organisation not providing for you that you need? And once we got their answers back, we transcripted those, and then we decided to try and line them up, and lo and behold, whānau wanted to know their whakapapa. And actually one of the statements was that, I need my baby to know her whakapapa so she don't end up with her cousin. Yeah. Whānau wanted to be self-managing. They wanted to be cohesive, resilient, nurturing. They wanted their whānau to be back together. They wanted to be healthy. And they wanted to do stuff. And also, of course, they wanted to know their heritage and their culture. Within that, because like I said right at the start, we had a diabetes and a cardiovascular focus, we thought, hey, what's stopping us from chucking in a 7th outcome or a 7th goal, which you see in the middle there. So So in terms of clinically secure, we made that a 7th goal, our Whānau Ora goal. And those around it were our performance indicators. So we could check on blood pressure because we have national standards to work against. So yeah, the beauty of this little model here is that this is adaptable. You could put education in the middle there. You could put domestic violence in the middle there. You could put justice in the middle there, or anything actually that you wanted to. This is the beauty of this assessment tool. So from that framework, we decided that we needed to develop it into a more robust assessment tool. I hope you can see that. So up the top there, this in terms of under the heading self-managing as a Whānau Ora goal, we developed some performance indicators. So we sat back and with our whānau, with our focus group, and said, well, how would you know that you're self-managing? Well, we'd know stuff. We'd want to do stuff. And I'd be able to do it. So some of these are the answers that we got back, which came into these performance indicators. From under there, we developed some key questions to hit those performance indicators. Does that make sense? Yep, cool. Right, from there, when the whānaus gave us answers, we got them to score themselves. Because far too often I could sit back and go, well, yeah, that means that you're like this. So, and that's what's happened to our whānau for so many times. And actually, this was a really, really interesting exercise to actually turn around and say to whānau, so where do you think you sit along this theory of change? Obviously, if somebody had given me an answer in terms of I know nothing about my condition at all, and they said, well, actually, I think I'm up here in that little pink cross, I think I know heaps, well, then that would generate a discussion. But pretty much whānau are honest with you, because they're wanting to have some change in their life. So from there, the whānau get to score themselves. These are all related to numbers as well. So basically, it's a 1 to 10. 10 being the very dot, where they have substantial levels or they have very positive aspirations, etc. And all the way down to 1. Now, scoring a 1 wasn't bad for our whānau. What it meant is it showed them that where their strengths and their weaknesses lied for themselves. So instead of me turning around and say, well, I think you actually need to do a bit of work here, they were actually able to see that really clearly themselves, because from the numbers that they gave us, from this scoring system, we entered into a graph, which I think I lost that slide. I did. It dropped out on the floor somewhere. So coming back to this, when we graph our whānau answers, we'd go back, we'd set some goals, some simple achievable goals with steps to be able to do that, and then we'd go back and reassess about 3 months later and we'd see movement. So a whānau member who might demonstrate that they have some knowledge, so we're looking under the red star, after some education sessions, a bit of knowledge given, a bit of tools, some skills, the way that they want it, because we'd ask them, so how would you want to learn about your diabetes or your cardiovascular disease? We'd go back and say, well, so what have you learned? And then they'd be able to do this, tell me stuff. So I'd say, well, where do you think you sit now? Well, I think I've got good knowledge now, Hera, because before I didn't know anything. So again, we'd go and graph that, because I've lost the graph slide, and we'd be able to very clearly show whānau transformation or movement that the whānau themselves knew that they were doing. All right, so really quickly, because I think I've got 2 minutes left, just really quickly about a whānau that's gone through this process. In terms of confident participating in Te Ao Māori, obviously no change to scores in this is her second assessment, but she had set a goal in Te Ao Māori. As this lady was adopted, she wanted to compose a pepeha for her and her tamariki and her mokopuna to be able to recite and pass on. So she's currently trying to discover her whakapapa. Again, there's a little bit about participating fully in society. Now, this lady has a daughter who's got 2 sets of twins and was under the SIPS system, so to speak. So one of the great things that she said, her daughter's become more confident, more resilient, has better strategies for dealing with things that upset her. So there we go with knowledge and skills. Some more whānau success in terms of living healthy lifestyles. So this lady was basically, she was unwell. But she's made a lot of changes. So overweight too, made heaps of changes to her diet. She now eats 3 regular meals, avoids pies and chips, etc. So, and she reports back to us that her life is so much better now. And we haven't done any work for her. All we really did was show her the areas that she needed to work on herself, which she showed herself just using this tool, and was able to make her own goals with our support. So all we did was give her some skills, some tools and some knowledge for her to be able to achieve. for her and her whānau. All right, really quickly, learnings, and there are heaps. It's about that engagement at the start, knowing your whānau and getting to know them, building relationships. Listen and ask them, and listen again. Know your stuff too, because they figure out pretty fast if you're full of it. One of the other really important things that we found out was that whānau actually needed to be motivated to change, to want to do this. It was no good for us to go out and go, hey, you come here, and you come here, and we're going to do this for you. It was actually whānau who wanted to change who've got the best outcomes. Okay, and one last thing, some acknowledgements definitely need to be made. First off, the whānau that we've been working with. We currently have 3 cohorts through this program. The first cohort is graduated and the second's about to, and our third cohort will be graduated in 2013. Obviously the team that I work with within this program, it's been a really hard, long journey, lots of paper cuts and lots of tears and laughter and some success along the way. And all the journals, pilot studies, articles, health information that we researched that helped us form what we made, because we did read a lot. All right, and also thank you very much for Katarana for giving me this opportunity to really quickly get all this stuff out. Kia ora.